remedies where practical for small businesses by virtue of the Small Business Act of 1954, right? And about the why. Mr. Chris Perkleton, he talks about the why you need to say yes to attend events like this, right? Part of that conversation is the saying yes means that Treasury is bringing in new entrants into our landscape. We are considering small businesses, right? Because of events such as these, a small business that participated was able to secure a $2.3 million contract. And they were a first time ever small business in Treasury's landscape. So we're excited and we want to make sure that we continue delivering on the why. Now we'll move on to event 3. With event 3, we have Miss Tamara Murray. We're excited to have Tamara join us today. She is the Underwriting and Marketing Specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration Surety Guarantee Program. Tamara began her career in the surety industry in 1990 as the bond manager for a small bonding agency in Fort Worth, Texas, before moving to Denver, Colorado, to become a contract bond underwriter. Tamara joined the SBA in 2007, and she is responsible for the marketing and outreach to the surety industry and small business community, working closely with bond agents and surety companies who provide over $7 billion a year in bond guarantees to small businesses. Without further ado, I would like to bring up Ms. Tamara. Tamara?
Thank you, Melissa. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Welcome, everyone. You know, I caught a lot of the panels, the presenters that have come before me, and it's such an honor to be part of a great group of professionals that all of the information that y'all have been getting, hopefully what I'll do for you today is kind of top that off. You've heard a lot about access to capital, a lot about SBA's programs, and what I'm here to tell you about today is another SBA program that you may not have heard of, and that's our Surety Bond Guarantee program. So in order to access some of these federal and other bonded contracts, you are typically going to need bonding capacity. And so we're going to talk a little bit about today about bonding capacity and how you can obtain bonding, what bonding means, and just really get you prepared for the future, especially if you're looking at some of those projects that are going to be coming down through the bipartisan infrastructure law. There are going to be bond requirements on SBA program that you may not have heard of. And that's our Surety Bond Guarantee program. So in order to access some of these federal and other bonded contracts, you are typically going to need bonding capacity. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about bonding capacity and how you can obtain bonding, what bonding means, and just really get you prepared for the future, especially if you're looking at some of those projects that are going to be coming down through the bipartisan infrastructure law. There are going to be bond requirements on many of those projects. So hopefully I can help prepare you today, demystify bonding for you today, so that you'll be ready to bond those government and other contracts. And, you know, as Melissa mentioned, I've been in the surety industry for, dating myself now, over 30 years. I've been with SBA's Bond Guarantee program for 15 years. So, you know, if you have any questions, please do feel free to put those into the chat, the Q&A, I apologize. And I'll be happy to answer those questions. And you can also feel free to reach out to me after today. If you'd like to have a more private conversation about your bonding challenges and maybe some steps that you need to take or be connected to a professional bond agent, I am happy to help you with that after today. But hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot of your questions in the next 45 minutes and answer any questions that you might have. So one of the panelists earlier mentioned, the SBA programs that maybe not all small businesses are aware of. And I'm sorry to say that that is true of SBA's bond guarantee program. As much as I would like to say that we are very well known in the country, we really aren't. So there are a lot of small businesses that are not aware of the Surety Bond Guarantee program. So that's what I'm going to tell you a little bit about today. Hopefully, it looks like my screen is frozen. There we go. Okay, apologies. I know we've had a little bit of technical difficulties here. All right, am I not sharing? I apologize. Am I not sharing my screen anymore? Oh, screen sharing has been disabled. All right, let's try that again. Hang on one second. There we go. Now we should be all set. Apologies again. I know sometimes we have technical difficulties with some of these events that we all attend. So thank you for your patience. Right. So one of the things that I'd like to start you all off with today is is a video overview of the Surety Bond Guarantee program. I think this will be helpful for everyone to just kind of get some general knowledge about what we do here in SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee program and how we can help your small business obtain the bonding that you need for federal and other contracts. So without further ado, let's take just a couple of minutes to listen to this video.
Small businesses are a critical part of the U.S. economy, and through the SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee program, we help small businesses at various stages. Emerging businesses that need contract surety bonds but may be new to bonding, as well as established businesses looking to increase their current bonding limits and capacity. For over 50 years, SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee program has been a trusted program creating access, opportunity, and stability for thousands of small businesses needing surety bonds, as in more than $7 billion a year in contract bonds. If you own a small business in construction or service industry and require a contract surety bond, with SBA guaranteed bonds, your working capital requirements are lower and your bond capacity is increased. The result? You compete for larger contracts or build your business as a prime contractor. Who benefits when small businesses get access to surety bonds? We all do. With access to bonds and increased bonding limits, small businesses grow, and that growth has ripple effects, such as hiring employees from local communities and contributing to the national economy. Convenience, not hassle. The program has low barriers to entry. It's easy to use. The entire process is electronic, and you receive fast decisions within hours for smaller contracts and less than 2 days for large dollar contracts. Sound like a program for you? Reach out to your local SBA district office to learn more, or take the first step to apply for the program by connecting with a surety agent authorized to issue SBA guaranteed bonds. Find a surety partner at sba.gov/OSG. Because at SBA, we make small business our business.
Okay, well, and don't worry, if you didn't catch all of that, we're going to go into the details now, and I'll also be providing you with that email address so that you'll have that a little bit later on, and you'll find out why that's important. So, we really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The Treasury and the USBC are hopefully going to help us ensure that SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee program is no longer a well-kept secret. So let's talk a little bit about surety bonds, what they are, what they do, why your project owners might be requiring these bonds. If you are trying to break into the federal contracting arena and you are looking at bonded projects, you are going to need to have some bonding capacity in place. But bonds aren't just required on federal contracts. We'll talk a little bit about that today, but you may be working with another public or even a private project owner that could require bonds on a contract that you are interested in bidding on or negotiating for. So let's talk about what those bonds are and what they do. So surety bonds, if you've heard that term, you heard it in the video just a moment ago, surety bonds is an umbrella term. And there are many different bond types that are available to businesses, like license and permit bonds, court bonds, even customs bonds are surety bonds. Contract bonds are also surety bonds. And these are the bonds that we're going to be talking about today because these are the bonds that we guarantee for small businesses here at SBA. So the four types of contract surety bonds are bid, performance, payment, and maintenance bonds. The bid bond comes into play when you contract if it's awarded to you. Then the performance payment and maintenance bonds will be required on your contract once it's been awarded. The performance and payment bonds are probably the ones that you're going to see most often. Those are the two that we see required on most contracts. And that's because taken together, these two bonds assure the project owner that they will have a fully completed functional project at the end of your contract, and there will be no liens or unpaid bills. That's because the performance bond assures your project owner that you'll perform the contract. You're going to complete the project in accordance with its terms and conditions. The payment bond assures the project owner that you're going to pay your bills on the job. So you're going to pay your subcontractors and your labor and material suppliers for their work on the project. So that's why those two bonds are most often taken together. You may also see a requirement for a maintenance bond. A maintenance bond assures the project owner that you will maintain the workmanship and materials installed on the project for a period of time after they accept the work. Usually 1 to 2 years, but that varies depending on the type of contract that you're signing. Now, these contract bonds are typically required of businesses that are performing construction work. So if you're thinking of doing a project for the US DOT, maybe you're going to be repaving a highway or putting up guardrails. Maybe you are working for the US military and you're re-roofing a building or remodeling. You're working for a general contractor on another project type. Maybe you are laying some asphalt. Those types of contracts are typically the ones that require these contract bonds. But even if you're in service, supply, or manufacturing, you can also find bond requirements on some contracts that you're interested in performing on. So I'll give you an example of some of those bond requirements. The federal government requires bonds on construction contracts when they're greater than $150,000. So that means that if you're looking at a federal contract and it is in a construction field, it has a construction NAICS code, then you are likely to see a bond requirement if that project estimate exceeds $150,000. If you're in another industry and you're looking at a different type of contract, maybe it's service, supply, or manufacturing, the requirement for bonding from the federal government can vary from project to project. And you're going to find that similar rules or regulations are in place with other public and private entities. I can think of, for example, one state here in the US that has a bond requirement for all of their contracts if the contracts are larger than $50,000. So what's really important for you as a small business owner to take away from what I'm talking about right now about these bonds is that you should be aware of any bond requirements on any of your projects as early as possible. You are not going to know whether or not there are bonds required on your project until you actually look at the project conditions. So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and you're taking the time to review those specifications on each of your projects. The sooner you know whether or not there are any bond requirements, the less stressed you'll be. If you need to obtain bonding capacity for the first time, or if you need to increase your bond limits to accommodate a new project, you're going to need some time to accomplish those tasks. So the sooner you know about bond requirements on your projects, the better off you'll be. Now, SBA can guarantee bonds on all types of contracts and subcontracts up to $6.5 million in size, and on direct federal contracts up to $10 million. So a lot of small businesses think that because we're a federal agency and we're a federal program, we can only help with federal jobs. And that's not true. We can guarantee any contract or subcontract type up to $6.5 million in size. And that's really why our small businesses are able to increase bonding capacity and obtain the bonding they need, because their surety company has SBA's guarantee on not just their federal jobs, but all of their bonded projects. Now, I know there's been a lot of discussion today about capital and access to capital and how you can access certifications. You know, every industry is a little bit unique, and the same holds true of the surety industry. So when you apply for bonding in the surety industry, your business will be evaluated on what we call the 3 C's of surety: capacity, capital, and character. Your surety company is going to establish your bond limits based on this review. And there are 2 components to bonding capacity, bond limits, that you should be aware of. You need to know what your bonding capacity is, so you know what sizes of projects you can pursue and how much work you can have ongoing at any one time. So bonding capacity has 2 components: your single contract limit, that's the largest job that your surety will bond for you, and your total bond limit. That is the total amount of work, total number of projects that your surety is willing to allow you to have ongoing at any one time. So when the surety reviews all of this information we're about to talk about, they are going to use that information to establish those bond limits for your company. So that review with the surety company begins with capacity. And capacity relates to your ability to complete the work. So the surety is going to look at your company's work experience, your past track record of successfully completing projects, and they're also going to ask for some information about your business management practices. Now, this information is usually collected through a contractor's questionnaire, where you tell the surety company a lot of historical information about your company so they can get a holistic view of what your company has been up to in recent years. It is your past experience, your largest completed projects, that's going to help the surety determine that first number of bonding capacity that I mentioned, your single bond limit. So if you're curious what sizes of single contracts you might be able to pursue and bond, the surety company is going to look at your largest job. And if your largest job, for example, is $500,000, everything else meeting the surety's qualifications, you should be able to qualify for bonding on about $1 million project. Sureties are pretty comfortable providing bonding at a level about 2 times your largest job. So that should give you an idea of what you might be able to qualify for on the single contract side with a surety company. Next up is capital. And capital relates to your company's cash flow, your profitability over the last few years, and the quality of your financial statements. So what the surety is looking for here is the working capital from your business financial statement. They're going to be looking at your working capital because that's what's going to help them set your total bond limit. That's that second part of bonding capacity that I mentioned. So that means that you'll typically be asked to provide your surety company with about 3 years of business financial statements, unless you haven't been in business that long. The owner's personal financial statements, because that's another part of the picture for the surety company, and maybe even a bank reference letter. Again, the surety is trying to get a handle on how much cash flow, how much working capital you have available to cash flow your projects. And that's what they're going to use to determine your total bonding capacity. Now, last but certainly not least is character. And character, that review is typically going to include the personal credit history of the owners of your business and their business reputation. So qualifying for bonding for contract bonds is very much like qualifying for a loan. It is a credit relationship. You're asking a third party, the surety company, to stand behind your business and represent to your project owners that you are the best option for their project. So the personal credit history of the owners of your business is going to come into play. Now, good character is important to qualifying for bonding in general, and it's required to obtain an SBA bond guarantee. We realize that many of the small businesses that need SBA's support are probably going to be challenged in the areas of capacity or capital or both. And so we really do rely on the drive and determination of our small business owners to, no matter what, make sure that they are going to be successful and they will successfully complete their projects. So character is paramount to obtaining an SBA bond guarantee. It's what we really do rely on to help small businesses across the country obtain the bonding that they need. Now, this underwriting process can take the surety company several days to complete. So I encourage you to begin the process today. Even if you don't have a project that you need bonded right now today, if your intention is to begin performing bonded work in the near future, you can pre-qualify for bonding today. And what pre-qualifying means is you go through the process of applying for bonding, and rather than coming out the other side of that process with a bond, you come out the other side of that process knowing your bonding capacity. And then you've already got your relationship established with your bond agent and your surety company. Once you know what your bonding capacity is, then you know what sizes of projects you can pursue. So when those RFPs and some of those projects start coming across your desk through your emails, then you know whether or not that's even a project you can pursue. So I recommend starting today, because the sooner you know what sizes of projects you can bond, the better off you'll be when you start looking at some of those projects. You'll be able to increase your revenue stream by bonding some projects. Now, that evaluation process by the surety, as you can imagine, can be challenging if your business is new and you've never completed a contract. If you've completed only very small projects, if your business has insufficient working capital, or even if the owner's credit isn't up to a surety company's typical standards. That's where SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee program comes in and helps small businesses. SBA helps level the playing field for small businesses by guaranteeing 80 or 90% of each bond based on the demographics of your business. So because your surety company has an 80 or 90% guarantee from SBA, they only risk 10 or 20% of the bond's value instead of the full 100%. So in case of a contract default, they know that they can rely, the surety company can rely on SBA's 80 or 90% guarantee to help them cover the costs of any defaults. It really is SBA's guarantee to our surety partners that makes them willing to help small businesses obtain bonding capacity to help them grow. So even for new emerging businesses who have maybe never even completed a project yet, that does not exclude you from obtaining bonding. It just means that you might need to start out on some smaller projects and build that relationship and build that track record so that you can qualify for bonding on larger jobs. Now, SBA's bond guarantee can help you get up to twice as much total bonding capacity without any additional working capital. These are the big advantages of SBA's bond guarantee program. We recognize that small businesses are strapped for cash. Capital is always an issue for small businesses. So our guarantee helps your surety company provide you with more bonding capacity without any additional working capital in your business. Our guarantee can also reduce or eliminate collateral requirements. So if you're currently bonding with a surety company and you have to post collateral to support your bond program, SBA's bond guarantee can replace that collateral. So you can get that collateral back and continue to use that for your day-to-day business operations. Now, in addition to the lower working capital requirement, there's another big advantage for small businesses in SBA's bond guarantee program, and that relates to a working capital bank line of credit. So again, there's been a lot of talk today about access to capital. If you do have a working capital bank line of credit, or you can establish one, even if it's through SBA's cap line, having a bank line of credit and having some availability on that bank line, having some available to use, can take your SBA bonding to the next level. So for example, if you have a $50,000 bank line of credit and you've got $25,000 available for use, that's an additional $25,000 in working capital that SBA adds to the working capital from your financial statement. And since more working capital means more bonding capacity, that increases your bonding capacity. And these are advantages that are only available to small businesses in SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee program. So not every business out there in the world is going to get these advantages. You can only access these advantages and SBA's bond guarantee through our program. Now, there is another challenge that we sometimes hear from small businesses when trying to obtain bonding capacity with a surety company, and that's financial statement quality. Many surety companies require CPA prepared financials when you get up into bonding some larger projects, maybe over $1 million or $2 million. Well, with all of the price increases and the significant inflation that we are now experiencing, project sizes in the last 3 years have in some cases doubled, maybe even tripled or more in cost. And that makes it a little bit more challenging for small businesses to obtain the bonding that they need on these larger contracts because of price increases. So here at SBA, we can guarantee bonds for larger projects, even if you don't have the CPA prepared financial statements that surety companies typically require. We will accept internally prepared business financial statements for many contracts up to $2 million in size. So that means that unless you're bonding contracts over $2 million in size, we may be able to work with just your own internal business financial statements. And, if you do want to bond some of those larger contracts, having SBA's guarantee on your first contract can give you the opportunity to secure that job and then the time that you need to upgrade your financial statements to meet those CPA prepared financials. Now, you heard in the video, we guarantee over $7 billion a year in contract bonds. And I think Melissa mentioned that in my bio, in my introduction. And last year, we helped over 1,600 small businesses obtain the bonding that they needed to grow. So hopefully we'll be able to help do the same for you as a small business if this has been one of your challenges in growing your business. Now, you're probably wondering how long it will take to get an SBA bond guarantee. Well, our program's users, our surety partners, have access to an electronic application process that will help you obtain your bond guarantee as quickly as possible. We have a streamlined, quick application that requires less paperwork and typically allows us to approve a bond guarantee in less than 24 hours. Now, outside of our quick app, bond guarantees on larger projects are typically approved in just a couple of days. So, we have a lot of staff, myself included, who really understand surety. We understand that you have deadlines. If you're bidding on a project, you have a bid deadline. If you don't have your bid bond, You may not be a responsive bidder. Same thing holds true when you've been awarded a contract. When you've been awarded a job, you may have anywhere from 10 to possibly 30 days to provide your bonds. So we're going to approve your application as quickly as we possibly can, knowing that you have a deadline by which you need your bonds. Now, to qualify for the Surety Bond Guarantee program, your business must be small by SBA's definition and be a U.S.-based for-profit business with legal resident owners. Your business and all owners must also possess good character, be current on public debts and taxes, be eligible to do business with the federal government, and not be involved in a current bankruptcy proceeding. Lastly, you'll need to pass that 3 C's underwriting process that I talked about a little bit earlier and need a contract bond that you're unable to obtain elsewhere with reasonable terms. There are some costs associated with bonding that I just want to make sure that you're aware of, and with SBA's guarantee. So there is a fee for SBA's guarantee. We do not charge a fee for a bid bond guarantee. So you will only pay a fee to SBA once you've been awarded a contract that requires bonds. That fee is 0.6% of the contract amount, and you'll pay that directly to SBA each time you need a bond guarantee. And we also want to make sure that you're aware of the surety's bond premium. This is a separate amount that you'll pay to the surety company for providing the bonds to you. Now, the surety's premiums typically vary from about 1 to maybe 3% of the contract value. And those rates vary depending on several factors, including the state where your project is located and the type of work that you do. So that's why I have to give you a range. But one of the things that I'd like to recommend to you is that when you go through this process, whether you are applying for bonding on a specific project or if you're pre-qualifying to find out how much bonding capacity you can qualify for, be sure that you also find out what your surety's premium rate is for your company in each of the states where you work. Once you can calculate your total bond cost, that's your surety's premium plus SBA's fee if you're using our program, then you can include your total bond cost in your bids and in your first pay requests to your project owners. Make sure that you include your total bond cost on all of your bonded projects so that it doesn't come out of your profit on the job. And just a side note, many of SBA's surety partners have reduced their premiums, the normal premiums that they charge, to compensate for SBA's 0.6% fee, which means that it helps our small businesses remain competitive against other firms not using the Surety Bond Guarantee program. On average, our small businesses pay 2.5% for bonding with SBA's 0.6% fee. So if fees are important in your industry and a few $100s can make the difference between getting a bid and not being the low bidder, that may be something to discuss with your agent and your surety company when you start having those conversations about your bond premium. So it's really our network of surety partners that help us here at SBA give small businesses the opportunity to get the bonding they need to compete for larger contracts or maybe even to bid as a prime contractor instead of a sub. We don't issue bonds here at SBA. We guarantee bonds that are issued by the surety companies that partner with us. SBA's authorized bond agents have access to over 40 surety companies. Many of these you probably recognize as, big name insurance companies whose commercials you've probably seen on television. Perhaps you didn't know that not only do they write insurance of all different types, but they write bonds and provide contract bonds to businesses all across the country, and they partner with SBA to provide bonding and support to small businesses across the country as well. So most of our bond agents represent several different surety companies so that they can work with you to find you the best surety company to meet your needs. And that's really the bond agent's job. The bond agent's job is to sit down with you and have a conversation about where you are today, where you want to be tomorrow or 5 years from now as it relates to your bonding, and really to kind of help you create that roadmap to get from point A to point Z. So you can get started today by visiting our website. It's sba.gov/OSG. And you'll see a little bit of basic information about our program. But the main thing that you're going to find on our website is a link to find an authorized bond agent. And that's where you really need to start. There are typically going to be several to choose from, depending on the state or territory that you're located in. So we recommend narrowing down that list to several bond agents that you think you might want to work with. Maybe you start with bond agents who are local to your state or your area. However you choose to narrow down that list, narrow it down and then call a few. Talk to them about your situation. Get a feel for how they can help your small business. A good professional bond agent goes beyond providing you with a bond and helping you apply for SBA's bond guarantee. Yes, that's their primary focus, but they can do a lot more than that. They really should be part of your small business professional advisory team, like your CPA or your banker. Because a good professional bond agent can refer you to a qualified CPA in your area if you need that. And they can even create that roadmap to help you get from where you are today to where you want to be with your bonding capacity, or even help you lay out the steps you need to take to qualify for bonding and to meet those contract bond underwriting requirements if you do need to make some changes in your business and the information that you have on hand for a surety. So hopefully what you'll take away from this is the best choice for you as a small business owner of a bond agent is going to be different than it would for me. If I were a small business owner, I'm probably in a completely different situation from what you are in and the types of contracts that you might be pursuing. So choose the bond agent that you think is going to be the best addition to your advisory team. I do have an additional resource that I will share with you a little bit later in the Q&A session that can help you ask the right questions of a bond agent and learn even more about bonding if you're interested in doing that. And you can also reach out to me after today, after we wrap up for today. So if there's anything that I can do to help answer your questions or help you obtain the bonding that you need or refer you to a selection of bond agents, I am absolutely happy to do that for you. Now, the reason that our bond agents are so important is that when you're working with a bond agent who partners with the Surety Bond Guarantee program, you have a chance to grow your business by competing for more contracts, and you can only access SBA's bond guarantee through an authorized bond agent and surety company. So if you're new to this whole process, then I recommend visiting our website and selecting a few bond agents and interviewing them. If you already have bonding in place and you're already working with a bond agent, if you want to access our program and our guarantee, call them up. Ask them if they have access to SBA's bond guarantee program. If your current bond agent does not have access to our program, please feel free to share my contact information with them. I would be happy to talk with them about how they can become an SBA authorized bond agent, so that your company has access to our program and you don't have to choose a new bond agent. I am more than happy to do that for you and to talk to your bond agent about how they can join our program. Now, I'd like to share a success story with you before we kind of wrap up and move into Q&A. If you have any questions for me today, I think we all enjoy hearing a success story, and this just happens to be one of our favorites. So Vera Hall's company, Vera Hall is a small business owner in Mississippi, and she came to SBA a few years ago in 2019 because she was only able to bond projects up to $250,000. And she felt that that was unreasonable. So she came to SBA's bond guarantee program. And as a minority woman-owned business, she was eligible for a 90% guarantee from SBA. And so she applied for her first bond guarantee with SBA. And I'd like you to hear a little bit about how we were able to help her business in Vera's own words.
We were bidding a security camera contract with a local college or university, may I say. And at the time, I was dealing with another surety, and I'm not going to name them. And so that surety said, what are you going to do? What is your estimate? And I said the estimate of that project is going to be about $650,000. Oh, that's too much. You need to stay in the 250. And so the insurance company that I was dealing with had already started reaching out to SBA. So I said to them, I said, I need to bid on this project. It's a woman-on set aside. They have a DBE set aside, and I really need to bid on this because no one else is going to bid on it. And so they reached out to SBA that morning and asked them where were they on the process with my application, and they told them, oh, well, yeah, we can bond that for her, the $650,000, and that's what happened that morning of the bid opening. I went in with an SBA surety bid bond to bid that project, and I was the only contractor to bid that project, and was awarded that project as well. So it has been a blessing, and it has totally helped in my business to grow and to enhance where it needs to be. So that's one of my stories.
Well, hopefully y'all caught all of that. In case we're having any technical issues, I know sometimes our Wi-Fi can be a little bit unstable. So, Vera Hall came to us in 2019, and she could only bond projects that were about $250,000. She applied for our program and was approved for her first bond guarantee at $650,000. So more than double the project size that her current surety was limiting her to. Now, if you fast forward just a few years, 3 years later, and Vera's company is now bonding up to $3 million projects with SBA's bond guarantee. So in just a few short years, not only did she more than double the single project size that she was able to bond, she's been able to consistently increase that number over the last several years, successfully completing contracts, and can now bond contracts of about $3 million in size. So that's our hope, really. That's why we are here at SBA, is to help you as a small business obtain the contract bonding that you need so that you can generate more cash, more profit, more revenue, right? And you can only have access to those bonded projects if you have the ability to bond them. So if you've been challenged in any of the areas that we have talked about today, I hope that you will reach out to an SBA authorized bond agent and start the process today of preparing to bond federal and other contracts that you're going to be looking at in the future. So I'd also hope that you take a minute to type your questions into the Q&A. I would love to know what we can do to help you access bonding today. Again, you're more than welcome to reach out to me after today if you don't have any questions now, or if you'd like to have a discussion in a more private setting, you are absolutely welcome to call me. I'll be happy to have a discussion with you about how SBA can help your small business obtain the bonding that it needs. But you've got me here today. Use me. We've got some time left in our 45-minute slot. So if you do have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those at this time. And I'm also going to take just a moment to add some of those additional resources into the chat in the event that you would like to have access to those a little bit later on down the road. So I'm just going to take a brief pause here. Melissa, I don't know if you would like to jump in and kind of wrap us up and moderate the Q&A. If you'd like to do that, I'm happy to do that with you. And gosh, just thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. And, all of our hosts, all of the panelists, it's just been such a wonderful day. And I'm so thrilled to be part of such a great group. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Tamara, for that. I do have a couple questions that came in. And one of them is, sometimes a contract asks for a certain level of bonding, which can be expensive for a smaller business. Is it possible to negotiate bonding levels with a procurement officer to make it more affordable?
It's such a good question. You're right. So bonding, the cost of bonding is always based on the contract value, right? So the lower the contract value of your project, the less expensive your bonding is going to be. But keep in mind that if your project requires bonds, your bond cost is an allowable billable job cost. That should not be coming out of your profits for that project. You should be getting reimbursed for that. So typically the cost of the bond is less of an issue unless you're in an industry where, a few $100s can make the difference between your bid and the second lowest bid. So, what I do recommend if you're in that situation and your bond premium, your bond cost is a super important factor for your business, you can negotiate your bond rates with your surety. Now, SBA's fee is fixed at 0.6%, but surety companies have different rates, and they have different rates that they can apply to different businesses, different types of work. So I would highly recommend that you have a conversation with your bond agent about how low they can get your bond premium rates to keep your bond costs as low as possible.
All right. The next question I have is, our company performs work as a prime contractor. We currently hold over $30 million in bonded contracts. We took out an SBA 7A loan back in December 2020. The loan was for about 1.5 mil, and payments are always made on time and are current. Our loan interest rate is variable. However, what department in the SBA may I reach out for assistance to help me so that they could provide me with refinancing options? They have not heard back.
Oh, goodness. I'm sorry to hear that. I think we're all short staffed, right? Everybody's trying to, kind of reconstitute after the pandemic. So I think, small businesses, federal agencies, we're all a little bit short staffed right now. And I apologize that you haven't heard back from anyone. I would recommend reaching out to the lender relation specialist in your local SBA district office. They are going to be the primary point of contact for any questions or assistance that you might need on SBA's loan programs. And if you don't know who that is, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. I'll be happy to look that up for you, depending on where you're located, and give you the contact information for the person to reach out to in SBA. I'm happy to do that for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tamara. One last question. Does a professional services company need bonding? Can you elaborate?
Okay. Yeah, that's so it really depends on the services. Again, most of the bond requirements are going to come into play in construction contracts, vertical and horizontal construction. But if you're in the service industry, maybe you provide janitorial or mowing services or security or something along those lines. If you're working with a public entity like a state or a federal agency or entity, you may find bond requirements on your type of contracts. But typically, most of the time, you're not going to have any need for bonding. So, as a small business in service industry or even supplier manufacturing, I think it's a judgment call. You really kind of have to look at who you're working with, who your project owners are, and whether or not they even require bonding on your projects.
Oh, wow. That's great. And I know they had a little bit of a follow-on to that question. Is there a credit score requirement for bonding?
There is. I can't pin that down for you because that's all up to the surety company. But yes, credit is a part of the picture. It is not the only part of the picture, but it is one part of the picture. And it is an important part because the surety company wants to assure themselves that you're going to be able to cash flow your projects. You're going to be able to pay your bills. And part of that is personal credit of the owners of the business. So it is a part of the picture, but it's not all of the picture. One thing that I will say, though, is that if you're looking at smaller bonds, there are some credit-based programs out there. That is ultimately when your credit is going to be super important. If you're looking to get bonding under like SBA's Quick App, which is limited to $400,000. It's about to go up to $500,000 on September 7th. Those credit-based programs are really reliant on good to better personal credit history. So working with your agent and working with your surety company, that's one of the first things they're going to do. They're going to pull credit, and then hopefully we'll have a conversation with you about if anything needs to be done, what you can do to kind of shore that up and prepare your business for obtaining the bonding that you need.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tamara, for such an insightful presentation. We all learned so much about surety bonding, and I know that we have a lot more to unpack as we move along. So you will see a reiteration of this conversation in fiscal year 2023. Again, Tamara, thank you for your presentation. And now I'll turn it over to TD to provide his closing remarks. Thanks, Tamara.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tamara, and thank you, Lisa. And that was great information. Great information by all of the panelists and information that we've had today. And so again, we would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules and attending today. Thank you to all of the moderators and panelists. Thank you to all the partners, U.S. Black Chamber, the Small Business Administration, Women Impacting Public Policy, as well as the entire Treasury team and bureaus that made this event possible. I want to really take the time to give a quick shout out to Lisa, who I'm getting ready to turn it back over to, because as the lead at Treasury OSB for these types of events, you can only imagine the commitment and dedication that it took to be able to actually orchestrate, coordinate, and execute events such as this. To quote Albert Einstein, imagination is everything. It is a preview to life's coming attractions. So as we leave this event today, let us continue to imagine that equity, diversity, and small business access to capital will increase abundantly. So I will close with a quote from a poem by James Weldon Johnson, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Over to you, Lisa.
Oh my goodness, wow, what an excellent closing. And thank you so much, TD, for your kind words. This has been a great event, right? And it is our hope that today's event has provided value add in relation to increasing equity and diversity for our small businesses. We again want to thank you all for participating. As a reminder, this is part of our Advancing Small Business series. We have some exciting upcoming events. Tomorrow we will be at Challenge Her, which is being hosted in collaboration with Women Impacting Public Policy in downtown Silver Spring. We also plan on hosting our very first Spanish-speaking Treasury OSB event on September 28, 2022. Again, for our calendar of event lineup, please email me at melissa.jenkins@treasury.gov. Again, melissa.jenkins@treasury.gov. We look forward in seeing you again real soon. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and all my best.